Good afternoon, y'all. Welcome to another video on the Luderco Arms channel. And this is the video where I have finally figured out what's causing the heating problem on this Cherokee. Now, it's not an overheating problem. It never actually overheats. It's never blown the radiator or anything. But as long as I've owned it, it got hot, especially in the summertime. Now, I solved a lot of that over time, but there was still just one little thing that was just irking the crap out of me. So everything on this vehicle has been replaced, and some things multiple times. The cooling system has been flushed over and over and over using every kind of chemical known to man. The water jackets inside this engine are so clean I would be willing to eat off of them. The water pump's been replaced with several different kinds. Radiator's been replaced a couple of times. All the hoses have been replaced. Thermostat's been replaced. Thermostat housing's been replaced. I mean, just everything. The fan clutch has been replaced. The fan has been replaced. Fan belt, electric fan is working, it's been checked, and yet we still had this oddball problem. Now, it wasn't like a normal problem. You can drive this truck in traffic all day long and it'll never go past 210. It'll be just fine. You can drive anywhere you want, down back roads, everything. You'll stick right around 210. You'll be just fine. But if you're on the interstate and you have to pull a long hill, which I do every day on my way back home from work, before you get to the top of that hill, this thing the temperature will climb. So if you're looking at the gauge in the truck, it looks like this, and normal operating temperature is right in the middle, as it should be. Now, keeping in mind that it is 98 degrees out today and the humidity is such that the heat index is like 106 or something. It's crazy hot. And you can still drive around town all day on 210 with the air conditioner running, the whole 9 yards. But you get out on the interstate and you go to pull those long hills, and this thing will climb up to about right there on the gauge. Now, it's not in the red. It's not quote unquote overheating, but it's hotter than it ought to be. Now, once you get off the interstate, slow back down, start driving normal, temperature goes back to 210. So, over the years that I've been trying to figure out what's causing this, I bought one of those kits with to check for exhaust gas in the coolant, and nope, don't have any exhaust gas in the coolant. No blown head gasket. Like I said, the coolant's been changed numerous times. I've spent so much money on coolant. Well, I finally today figured out what the problem is. So today I just got back. I'll slip a little video in here. All right, y'all, I have been driving around. You can see that the temperature gauge is on 210, as it should be. The temperature outside is 98 degrees, and it's humid, and the heat index is well over 100. So we're fixing to pull this hill that usually causes my heating issue. So what'll happen is this temperature gauge will climb up and then once you crest the hill, it'll go back down. So I'm suspecting that the transmission is heating up the radiator. So we'll see if this cooler does what I need it to. This hill right here coming up is usually where it happens. drive around town on flat ground all day long, it'll never overheat. And it's really not overheating, it's just getting hotter than it should. We're going to run up this hill, see what it looks like. So we are at the top of the hill, and the temperature has climbed a little bit, but it has not hit the next notch past 210. Normally, it would have already been between that notch and the next one. Pay no mind to the speedometer because my gear is not right. Speed's actually about 65 right now. So I'm going to call that a win. That is way, I can live with that. That is way better. All right, so back to the shop. But I pulled that hill, and again, it's 98 degrees, 106 heat index, definitely hot. And today, after what I did, I pulled that hill, and the gauge rose, but it only rose about right there. And then, by the time I pulled in the driveway, it had gone back to 210. So, what did I do that made the difference? Oh, I added this transmission cooler. And it is, you can feel the heat radiating. You can't even put your hand on that thing right now. And that is not installed like you would normally install an auxiliary cooler. And I'll explain to you why I did what I did and why I did it. So I started to suspect that the problem was the transmission adding heat to the radiator. And in fact, that is what the problem was. Now you might be thinking, well, you got those big old tires and you're overworking the transmission. But I have 488 gears. And 488 gears with 35-inch tires, this thing's actually right around the factory specs as far as shift points and everything. So yes, it's got to work a little harder to turn those tires, but with the gearing, it really shouldn't be as big a deal as you might think. And I know lots of people that have that and don't have this problem that I have. So that transmission cooler is installed in line in the hot line. So your transmission lines come out of the transmission, and the hot line goes up, and that's the top line going in the radiator tank. And then at the bottom line, your cool oil or cooled oil comes out, goes back to the transmission. Normally you would mount an auxiliary oil cooler in the cool line going back to the transmission. But because I'm trying to experiment, figure out what was going on, I went ahead and installed it in the hot side so that it cooled the oil some before the oil went into the cooler built into the radiator. And since that made a difference on what our gauge is reading, then that tells me that that is where the heat is coming from, is the transmission. Which means we have slippage, which is not surprising because, you know, this thing's a 98 model. It's got bigger tires and, you know, the transmission's not new. So now that we know where the heat's coming from, what can we do about it? I believe that the first thing I'm going to do, one, I'm going to leave that cooler on there for now. Can't hurt anything, and it's already plumbed in. But I think what I'm going to do first is put a shift kit in this. Now that sounds counterintuitive, putting a shift kit into something, but there's a reason why. So when your automatic transmission shifts, it slips, and it does that because it makes it more comfortable for soccer moms and your grandma and whatever to be driving in a vehicle. You know, those soft, mushy shifts are accomplished with slipping. And then when you modify a vehicle, add bigger tires, all this other stuff, add more weight to it, well, that slipping causes more heat. Slipping causes heat. And so by installing a shift kit, it causes the gear shifts to lock up quicker, reducing the slippage and thereby reducing the heat. What a lot of people don't realize is the slippage that is built into the transmission to make it comfortable for most people is actually bad for the transmission. Putting a shift kit in the transmission and causing it to not slip so much is actually better for the transmission. Now, of course, you know, if you've got a big V8 or something, then you've got to worry about shifting and, you know, knocking U-joints off and everything. But hey, we got a 4-liter, so I'm really thinking we don't have to worry too much about that. The other thing that I'm thinking is causing the heat is if you've ever looked at the advertisements for like a Transgo shift kit, which I have one right here. I've already bought it. So I got a Transgo shift kit here and the AW4 book. And part of this shift kit's advertising is there's a piston in the valve body in these things that's aluminum. And when they leak by, because aluminum wears down, then you get heat problems. So that could also be the problem. But in putting the shift kit in, we're going to knock that out too, because it comes with a new piston that's made out of steel and won't wear out and leak by. So that's not going to happen today. None of that's going to happen today. I don't have time to do it this weekend. And it may not happen right away because I may wait until fall when it cools off some before I want to lay out here and take the transmission apart, pull the valve body out and rebuild it and put it back in. Because this thing drives fine, and as you're driving down the road, you don't really feel the transmission slipping. But because we have the heat, we know that it is. And it may be that it's always been slipping, and it just is the way I expect this Jeep to drive. I don't know. But that's going to be the next step. We're going to eventually put the transmission shift kit in here, rebuild the valve body, and go from there. But I'm just happy because now I know where the heat's coming from, and I have reduced it by adding this cooler, and that's good stuff. That makes me very happy, because I have been pulling my hair out after having gone through everything in the engine that could possibly cause this damn thing to overheat, and there was just nothing there. So now we know it wasn't the engine, it's the transmission causing the thing to overheat. So, and I keep saying overheat. It's not overheating. It's just getting hotter than it should in one particular situation. Like I said, driving around town, it's fine. You know, 210 all day, no problem. It's just, you know, when you got to pull, and driving on the interstate flat is no problem. It's when you got to pull a big long hill that you start getting the heat in this thing. So, luckily, we'll be able to fix that, I'm thinking. And if the shift kit doesn't fix it, then we'll have to rebuild the transmission, which I'm hoping that's not it, because there ain't a whole lot of information about rebuilding no AW4, because it just don't go bad that often. But when I do the valve body, I will make a video of that, because that's a complicated thing, and it would be probably helpful to some people to see it done before tackling the job. But like I said, that'll be a while. We got many more things to work on before we get around to doing that. But like I said, the good news is we know where the heating problem is coming from, and we have it band-aided until the future. So if you're wondering what cooler I used, it's this Doral Performance 15-inch long dual pass aluminum heatsink cooler. I ordered that off the internet. They got all kind of cheap Chinese knockoffs on Amazon, but you know, this is made by the same guys that make the atomic coolers and all kinds of good stuff. So hopefully it will serve its purpose and last a while. All I know is we're keeping the heat out of the we're keeping the heat down, which is good, and that'll help this thing out until I get the time and the energy and desire to rebuild the valve body in it, put the shift kit in it. So that's kind of it for this video. It's not a super long one, but I just figured I'd give you all the news that I have figured out what was causing the heating issue. So I guess I will stick the video in real quick. Well, I guess we don't really need it. I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Somewhere in here there'll probably be the video of driving that hill, but in the meantime it doesn't really matter. So hopefully this has helped y'all out, gave you something else to think about, because you know, we have enough to worry about with these trucks. Ain't getting any newer. And appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Y'all have a good one.